Hey there, this is Kamal, and in this video we'll be learning about hash maps. So let's get started. Alright, so first things first, what is a hash map? A hash map is a data structure in which we store the data in a key value pair fashion, meaning that all the values that are there inside of the hash map will be associated with a key. So every value has its own key, and in order to access the values, you use the keys. So let's say for example you have an array. Inside the array you have a list of values, right? Let's say from A to E. Now all these alphabets have their corresponding indices, right? So in order to access the first value, you use the index 0. Similarly, for the second value, you use 1, and so on and so forth. Here, the 0, 1, 2, and 3 are the indices, or in this case, they can be thought of as keys, and A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and all those things will be values. So the keys will have values associated with them. So that's how you store the data inside of hash map as well. So every key that is there inside the hash map will have some value to it. One major point here is that all the keys inside of hash maps are unique. So you cannot have duplicate keys, but you can have duplicate values. And one more thing here is that the keys could be of any data type and the values also could be of any data type. Though all of them have to be the same, they could be anything, right? So let's say the keys could be strings and the values could be integers, or the keys could be doubles and the values could be strings. Any of such combination is possible, right? So now let's jump into the code and actually see how we can create a simple hash map. So here I have a class called as hashmap.ex. So instead of this, let's create a new main method. And in the main method, I'll be creating a new hash map. So in order to do that, you can just type in hash map. Make sure you check the spelling correctly. So it's going to be capital H and capital M. So this hash map is present inside of the util package. For this, let's create a variable. I'll name it as, let's say, hash map, and equate that to a new constructor, right? So let's close it off. You can see that we are getting some warnings here, and that is because it seems that we are using the raw parameterized version, right? So the thing is that you have to define the data types that you're going to store inside the hash map as well. So as I've said, we have the key and the value, right? So let's say we want to create a hash map of groceries. So let's name it as, and in here, let's give it as string and integer. So the keys are going to be strings, whereas the values are going to be integers. As you can see, there is another warning here, and that is because you have to give a diamond operator here as well. Though we don't need to define the data type once again, we just have to give that here because of some issues with the older Java versions, right? So now inside of this, let's try to add some values. So I'll take the groceries variable, and in order to add values, use a function called as put. Now inside of this, you have to give the key, that is in this case string, and the integer, which is a value, right? So let's do that. So I'll give it, let's say, eggs, and let's say I want to have 5 eggs. Now with this, hash map has been added with some values. Let's add some more things. So let's say I want to add milk. So I want to have, let's say, 2 milk cartons. So I'll add that here. Now let's try to print it out. So I'll be using system out, and in here I'll just print out the groceries variable directly. So let's check what's happening here. Alright, so we got the output here. You can see that we have eggs as 5 and milk is equal to 2. You can see that the data is somewhat in a key value fashion, right? So this is the key and this is the value. This is the key and this is the value. So whenever you add few more things, it's going to be printed out in the same way. So if you observe here, you can see that we are using hash map and we are not using map. So though we have map inside of Java, we don't use that basically. That's because an hash map is basically an implementation of map. You can see that hash map is basically implementing the map class, right? So it is also present inside of the Java util library, and it's implementing this. Map is just an interface and it doesn't have any implementation. It just has the methods that needs to be implemented by hash map or something else, right? All right, so now let's try to see how we can actually get few values, right? So you've seen how we can add values. Now let's see how we can specifically print out one value. So here I'll type in this out again, and I'll type in groceries. And here, instead of put, I'll use another method called as get. Now inside of this, you can see that there are two options. One is get, or another one is get or default. Now let's see what get does. So I want to, let's say I want to get milk. So I'll copy that, and I'll paste it here, and I'll run that. You'll see you'll get the value 2. So milk has the value 2 because milk is the key and you're getting that value associated with it, right? So let's say I want to check what get or default does, right? So let's create another sysout variable. Let's type in groceries once again, Now this time, let's say I want to get something which is not there inside of the hash map that we have created. So I'll do get.default, and now here I'll type in bread. Now when we don't have that value, we have to print something. So in this case, I want to print 0. So 0 is going to be the default value when bread is not present inside of our hash map. So if I now run this out, you'll see that you're going to get the value as 0. But if I do add it out here, let's add bread and let's give it as 6. Now if I run it once again, you're going to get the value as 6, right? So that's how you get it. And as I've said previously, the keys have to be unique. So if I, let's say, add something like eggs once again, and let's give it as 10, you'll see that instead of creating that value once again, it will just override this existing value. So in this case, x is going to be updated to 10. Previously it was 5, now it is 10, right? So you can see that here. But we can have multiple values, right? Like we can have duplicate values as well. So if I put it as, let's say, 2, and if I say that once again, you'll see that milk is going to be 2 as well as eggs are going to be 2. And one more thing, if you observe here, is that I've added eggs, milk and bread in the order, but you can see that when it's being printed out, it's not being printed out in the same way. And that is because hash maps internally are unordered. So it doesn't matter what order you put them in, they will always be randomized inside. And since you are just using the key to get the values, it doesn't matter what order they are inside of it as well, right? So that's what's happening here. So apart from these methods like putting and getting the values, you can also check whether the hash map has few keys or not. Like let's say I want to check whether the hash map has bread or not. So I'll do something like groceries dot contains key. So it's going to check whether this particular hash map has that key or not. In this case, I want to check if it has bread. So if I do that, you should get true, and that is because hash map already has the bread key. So now let's say I want to get all the keys. So there is another method called as key set, which is going to give me all the keys which are there inside of this particular hash map. So if I run this, you should get all the keys, right? You get all the keys inside of an array. Similarly, you can also get the values. So something like values will give me all the values as well. And similar to contains key, you can also check contains value to see whether that particular value is present or not as well. So apart from this, there are multiple methods that you can go ahead with. So you can just type in dot and list through all the available functions that you have. So you can go ahead with this. You can check whether the particular hash map is empty or not as well. And you can also put some values inside of this if it is already not present. You can remove this, you can get the size of it, you can replace it and do a lot of other things. You can loop over it as well. So that's going to be pretty neat to use. So yeah, so just go through this, and with this you'll be able to better understand hash map as well, right? So these are some of the basic things that you can do with a hash map. So that's it for this video, guys. I hope you have liked what you've seen till now. If you did, then please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe as well. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.